Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Mormon Stories Podcast. And today is a special edition of Mormon Stories Podcast because we are recording today from sunny Las Vegas, Nevada. It is September 20th, 2019. And we are so incredibly excited. This is an interview I've been waiting for many, many years, probably 4 years. We are here to interview Wayne Sermon. Wayne is the lead guitarist for Imagine Dragons. He's a musician, accomplished musician. And we're here to interview Alexandra Hall, who is married to Wayne. And she, in her own right, is an accomplished dancer, ballerina, and mother of three, which, again, is its own accomplishment in many epic ways. And mostly I'm just delighted to be interviewing some wonderful humans, and that's always what I care about most, is sharing the stories of thoughtful, caring people. And so that's what we're doing today.
You don't know that, John. We'll find out.
Let's not jump to conclusions.
Is it premature?
Yeah.
We'll find out.
We'll see. Thank you for that. Really quickly, part of what I'm excited about this interview, a very small part, but an important part, is that many of you who are paying attention or are on social media will know that we are planning a Thrive conference in November 17th in Salt Lake City, Utah. This is a conference that's really important. There's a lot of, when people are struggling with the church or leave the church, there can be a lot of negativity or frustration. We explore that on Mormon Stories. Thrive is all about helping people who are not Orthodox Mormon, who are struggling or who have left, just find healing and joy and community. And so we're having a full day, November 17th, where we're going to have some of the best speakers we can find, including Wayne Sermon, just talk about different perspectives on how to heal and grow and find community and thrive, after you leave Mormon Orthodoxy and or the church. And so Wayne's going to be speaking or keynoting at that event along with Amber Scora, who is the author of the book Leaving the Witness, ex-Jehovah's Witness, amazing human from New York. And we're going to have a fantastic lineup of other speakers. Again, all positive, all dedicated towards healing and growth. And so you can go to thrivebeyondmormonism.com to register. We're operating it as a loss. There's no money that's going to be made here as far as we know. We're charging $15 for the entire day. And there's probably no chance we're going to make our money back. Just the facilities and the screen and the projector is going to cost $20 or $30 grand. So anyway, check out thrivebeyondmormonism.com, and we'd love to have you. And we're just so excited that, Wayne, you're coming on Mormon Stories along with Alex, and that you're willing to share your story. So thanks, guys.
Thanks for having us, John.
Yes, thank you so much.
Are you guys nervous? Are you nervous?
For sure.
A little bit?
Mm-hmm.
I'm okay.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Well, lucky guy.
And I love that we've got this kind of Joe Rogan vibe going on where we're sitting around a table with...
yes, thanks for indulging me on that.
Yeah, we wanted to hide behind something.
Well, that's the thing is I am so much more comfortable behind something like this.
Like a guitar?
Yeah, like a guitar or a mic. So this is this is right up my alley. I do watch Joe Rogan, so this is, fulfilling a dream for me. But it's
a great setup. I've got a good mic. You've got good mics.
Yeah, no, obviously Alex has the best mic. This is a Neumann. Everyone, in case anyone doubted my love for my wife, same mic Dan sings on all of our songs. So
I'm honored.
No, thanks for having us, John. Obviously I've been a fan of the podcast for a long time listener, first time attendee. We've both been very engaged in the discussion, listened to a lot of your podcasts and been contemplating sort of our role in it. And I'm a very private person generally, and I kind of see myself as maybe a little bit of a yin to Dan's yang as far as personality and character, and he thrives under that attention and does really well with it, and I kind of like to be more in the background, and it's just I think it's just part of who I am as a person. But obviously with him doing Love Loud and how vocally he's been about certain issues in the church, obviously I've played them and I've showed support that way, but I've sort of been silent other than that, in those ways. So I don't know. For me, at least for me, my own silence became sort of deafening, at least in my own ears. And so I figure if, you know, I can be slightly uncomfortable for a couple hours and because, you know, while there is probably a self-serving side to me doing this and being a part of it, you know, I hope that my real aim here is to help other people, because I know what it feels like to have sort of your foundation or like your view of the world that you thought was so solid to have that kind of pulled from under you. And then, you know, I'm here I guess just to show it doesn't really matter what walk of life you come from, who you are, how successful you are, what the world thinks of you. It hits everyone the same when this stuff happens. So more than anything, I just want to be a shoulder to lean on for people that, you know, because I know that when my wife and I were going through this, at least we had each other, but man, did we feel alone, you know.
And isn't that amazing? You can feel alone when you've got a lot of people you know, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people you could theoretically turn to.
Right.
If you guys can feel alone.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think it's kind of funny too. Like, we have really good friends of ours that were, you know, that we assumed were super Mormon, and that Brittany and they don't care if we mention them. It's Brittany and Andrew Tolman, and like you mentioned, like, you know, your circle comes. It's like you have this huge circle in the church, right? This huge family circle, and then when this transition happens, your circle becomes very small, and you feel like it's almost like, who can you talk to? So Brittany and Andrew were going through like the exact same thing we were going through, and we were like dear friends with them, and we didn't communicate at all about it. We had no idea that they were listening to Mormon stories or anything.
You were both going through it at the same time
Simultaneously.
and afraid to tell each other
Absolutely.
as best friends.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, why infringe on someone's fragile testimony when you're struggling with something?
And that's compassionate.
Yeah.
But then you can't even turn to your own dear friends.
Yeah, and even like, you know, I want to be careful with how I speak about, you know, he has his own view about church and everything, so I want to be mindful of that. But even him as well. Like, I finally talked to Dan about it too, and he was like, yeah, I'm listening to that too. It's like, how are we not talking about this stuff? Like,
see each other every day.
and it's like there is just sort of a shame about, like, you know, if you look into church history, if you go down this path, that you're just sort of programmed to feel shame. Like, it's like hardwired into your brain that if you go down a certain path, that you should feel secretive and just a little bit shy about it. So, and I thought that was kind of a funny thing that happened.
So as we're talking about motives, you mentioned wanting people not to feel like they're crazy, not to feel like they're alone, to know that you can be a resource for them. And this is just so people can understand why, because we have a mutual friend that I had breakfast with today, and we talked about why. And you know, there are risks. You don't want to hurt your loved ones. As someone in business, and it is a business. Mm-hmm. You know, there are always like fears or risks around, like, how could this impact that? And so it's kind of an act of courage that it sometimes even defies logic or reason.
Right.
You mentioned the altruism of trying to help people, but also what's it, and we'll get into this, but isn't there also something harmful about staying quiet and kind of inauthentic and kind of packing it down and being in the closet?
Yeah, I think so. It's definitely been wearing on both of us. And I think that's why I wanted to come to this podcast in particular, like specifically, because I mean, I love the podcast medium in general. I think that it's like a bastion of sanity in the world.
Yeah.
It's like, I feel like traditional media has completely failed us in that it's completely underestimated people's attention span and willingness for people just to like listen to a conversation of two people or three people and just, you know, long form conversations. And it's like Facebook has devolved into a cesspool. Twitter, what can you say in 100 characters that's meaningful? So no room for nuance in any of that. And so I just love podcasts, but also this podcast in general, because I feel like your audience is somewhere, you know, whatever reach I might have through the band, I can't necessarily control. But as far as your listeners, they run the gamut. It's not like there's this huge anti-Mormon mob that's out to get anybody.
We have active bishops
Absolutely,
that communicate with me directly and say, hey, I'm a bishop, but I love Mormon stories.
Right.
It's wild.
Yeah, it's wild. But it's perfect. And that's, you know, you cover the whole spectrum of the faith, Mormon faith, and faith in general. So that's why we both felt like this was the right moves, because it's not, you know, it's broadcasting to the people that are ready to hear it, or at least open to hearing it.
They're on the fringe.
Well, I'm honored. I'm really honored, genuinely. So thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And just, you know, one more button, sorry to
No.
This can be much more conversational, but I want to be really clear just from the outset. I can speak for both of us that we are not here. What we're not here for is to convince anyone of our position.
Yep.
We are not here to try and lead anyone into any way of thinking. Like you said, a lot of our fans are religious people, and on top of that, a lot of the fans we have in Utah and the surrounding areas are Mormon, and so I respect them. If anyone happens to be in that category, I love you, and I don't judge you at all. And it's not about attacking. And you've mentioned on your podcast, maybe the first time I heard it was when you said it was that when you attack someone's personal beliefs, it really isn't any different than, it doesn't feel any different than you attacking them physically. Like the same fight or flight responses kick in, your heart rate increases, your breath shallows, your IQ drops 15 points. And so you feel like you're being attacked, and so you're never at your best when that happens. And I've been in that position. I know what that feels like. So, to anyone out there that if there's something that they don't agree with, just know that I have a particular advantage of being on both sides of this. I've been there. I understand what that feels like to feel like you're being attacked, but I also have to be authentic to myself. So that's pretty much all I have to say as a precursor, and then we can have fun.
I'm feeling attacked right now.
This is why I brought Alex on, because she's
Alex the comic relief.
She's the comic relief. I tend to I get too serious.
She's the Robin. Is she the Robin Givens? Is that who it is? Howard Stern? Who's
Robin? Yeah.
It's been a while since I've listened to Howard Stern.
Yeah, it is Robin. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, and I'll go on the record and just say I love Mormonism. I love the Mormon Church. I want it to thrive. I just want it to be its best self. Yeah. I want there to be less pain, more joy. If you believe in the church, I celebrate you. I celebrate your beliefs. We just need to find a way to do this where less people get hurt and more people reach their potential. That's it. So,
amen.
That's my agenda.
Right. Great.
So stay Mormon, those of you who are Mormons. Stay Mormon. We're not here to change that.
Well,
we're just here to tell real stories.
Absolutely. And it's funny you mentioned that, because for a long time when you first find out about this stuff, it's like you have these fantasies about oh man, if only my family knew all the stuff I knew, if only I could get them to believe what I believe, then I'd really be happy. And we could all go for a drink together and it'd be great. And as time goes on, I care less and less about someone having to agree with my opinion. I just want them to be them. Yeah. I have no issue with them. I just want them to be happy. And if Mormonism works for them, then bingo. Yeah. That's all I need.
Absolutely.
Totally.
Well, let's start with this. Maybe Wayne, do you want to start with your story then, or?
Story.
Yeah.
I was born and raised on a sunny afternoon in American Fork at 3:15.
American Fork,
born and raised.
Pioneer ancestry, all that?
Yes, I had a how many greats are there? Great grandmother that crossed the plains in the Martin Handcart Company.
And heard of it?
Heard of it? Heard of that? Talk about heritage, John.
That's legit.
Yeah. Born and raised in Utah. Had an awesome upbringing. I loved where I was from. I love American Fork. I love, it's like,
for those who don't know, where's American Fork?
It's in Utah, pretty much smack
Utah
dab.
County.
Yep, Utah County, smack dab in the middle.
Between Provo and Alpine Highland, right?
Right there in the middle of Happy Valley, just
north of Pleasant Grove. Mm-hmm. Is that right?
North of Peach. Yep.
South of Lehigh. Where is it?
Yeah, just south.
South of Lehigh. Bingo.
Okay.
Yep,
okay.
Exactly. So, how I describe it is if anyone's ever seen the movie Sandlot.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
classic. That's pretty much my upbringing. It's minus the
lifeguard,
no oiling and lotioning was happening, no giant dog, no being chased by. But
what is it about Sandlot that reminds you?
Just like the feel of it, like hopping fences, playing football with your neighbors. Everyone knows each other. There's this friendly atmosphere. You leave your car unlocked, and it doesn't matter. There's no chance in hell that anything is going to happen to your car. Right. You leave your garage open. Right. You leave your doors open.
It still happens in American Fork.
It still happens. It's
and
true.
It confuses me.
My parents leave the keys in the ignition still to this day.
Yeah.
And their address is.
It's like great. All your neighbors. It's like you're friendly with all. Like a really great way to be raised. So I had a wonderful upbringing, and it's like as far as spiritually, it's like everything's figured out for you. You have a. We're all the same thing here, and it's, so I would describe it as maybe a little vanilla, but the good kind of vanilla that has the little black bits in it,
Vanilla bean?
Vanilla bean with black bits.
Yeah, it's like the good vanilla,
I love it.
It's
delicious.
Classy vanilla.
Yeah, it's a classy vanilla, exactly.
So your favorite things as a kid were what?
Oh, just hanging, being a kid, just, pretty typical.
Were you
Hanging
into
with
music
friends.
as a kid? Did you start?
Yeah. I was from a very musical family. We fashioned ourselves as a bit of an Osmond.
Really?
The Osmonds of Utah. No, not really, but we did have a family band. Everyone played instruments.
What was it called?
The Sermon Family Band.
How did your parents get into music? Were they?
My mom was a really accomplished piano player, and my dad. I mean, basically, the best way to describe I'm basically living the dream of my father as far as the band and everything. That's what he wanted to do with his life more than anything. He loves music. He makes music of his own. He's a composer and an artist. And
who were his biggest musical influences? I'm just
Beatles.
curious.
Are you kidding me?
That's my favorite band. So did he? How would he have grown up after the Beatles? During
he
the Beatles?
was born in '53. So
okay, so he would have.
He saw Ed Sullivan.
So he'd have been 11 when Ed Sullivan happened.
Yep, he was.
And then he would have rode his adolescence would have been the Beatles' career.
Yes,
I mean he would become an adult when the Beatles broke up.
Exactly.
That's amazing.
And so,
he saw Ed Sullivan? He saw the Beatles on Ed Sullivan?
Absolutely.
And he remembers?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, cool.
As far as growing up, I don't ever remember a time not knowing what the Beatles were. There's never a moment where it's like, what's the Beatles? Since I was, my first memories were listening to vinyl records.
Actually, the first time I met his dad, he pretended like I didn't know who the Beatles were. And his dad was like...
As a way to mess with your dad's mind.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing.
Exactly. Okay, so I grew up playing Beatles LPs too. I'm way older than you, but which of your favorite Beatles albums really stuck out for your childhood?
Oh,
do you remember?
Don't do it.
No? Too hard?
Too hard.
Not Help? It's not Help? It's not Rubber Soul?
Oh. I mean, Rubber Soul, Abbey Road, and obviously Sgt. Pepper's are the ones that
Something is our song that we danced to at our wedding.
Yeah.
That's George, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's
George one.
That's what you danced to at your wedding?
Yeah.
Margie and I danced to a Beatles song at our wedding.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Which one?
In My Life.
Oh.
Great one.
Such a good one.
Yeah.
Really
I
can't
think
go wrong.
it's either If I Fell or In My Life, but I'm pretty sure it's In My Life.
That's a tearjerker.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I mean, and that was my introduction into music. Really, is listening to really good vinyl on a really good audiophile grade record player that my dad had.
Marantz or what? What type of? Do you remember the brand of the
Pioneer? It was like a high-end Pioneer, I think.
So I think Abbey Road's my favorite Beatles album.
Yeah.
Is that?
I think it's
solid.
mine.
You can't pick.
I think it's mine. Yeah.
You like Abbey Road?
Yeah.
So did you grow up listening to Beatles?
Oh yeah.
Really?
Oh yeah.
That's not everybody.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
It should be.
So you like Abbey Road?
I love them all.
Oh, Darling. That's
right. Yeah.
It's hard to get better than Oh, Darling.
I know.
But yeah, I mean, that's nothing sounds better than vinyl, even now, to me.
I just heard that vinyl is starting to outsell CDs.
Yes, it is.
It's about to cross a threshold where more vinyl sold than CDs.
Yeah, it's wild.
Makes me happy.
Okay, so high Beatles influence.
Yes.
Musical family. So were you guys performing everywhere?
We did we had performances now and then. We
Tell them about Christmas Kids.
The Christmas Kids was a thing. To all my fellow Christmas kids who might be watching, what up?
What was that?
It was basically all the neighborhood kids got together. The parents had something to do with it, I think. But they all got together and we basically toured around Utah and had a whole program, 2-hour program.
Ooh.
Matching sweaters?
Yeah, I think we even had some paying gigs by the end of it.
For how many years?
Oh, probably, I don't know, how long did it happen? 5 or 6 years?
This is a thing? Now, do you remember this?
No.
You were in California?
No, but it's my favorite story.
Oh, okay. What do you love about that story?
I mean, I just love the idea of these kids being wrangled by... I mean, they're not really stage moms, but, getting their sweaters on, organizing the shows.
Yeah.
Singing your tunes.
We were quite something. We were quite a spectacle.
How many siblings?
I have 4 siblings, 3 older, 1 younger.
Okay.
And yeah, it's very typical. I don't know, typical, that's a dumb word. It's very, I don't know. What would you call it? Ideal,
Quintessential?
The quintessential Mormon family. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay.
Just, it was like... I don't know how to describe it.
Were the Osmonds an influence?
I mean, no, not really. But it's we were the kind of family that's the Sermon family's solid. This is a very
They're good kids.
Good kids.
Great parents.
Very much with the program. Great. It's very strong. Your quintessential kind of strong Mormon family.
So in terms of like family home evening, scripture study, family prayer, was that all? I mean, nobody's perfect, but like, was that all part of your upbringing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like no, not every single Sunday, but yeah, I mean, not every single Monday, but yeah, it was. We were that kind of family, you know. You go to your priesthood class, you go to your youth activities every week, and go to service projects. You do all of it.
And you were into it.
Yeah.
Did you have a favorite primary song? I always ask that.
I have a least favorite one. I don't know if I have a favorite one. For some reason, follow the prophet. I don't. How did that ever happen? It's like this minor key, weird, like spooky
Halloween
song. It's like, how did that ever get into the canon of primary songs?
Right.
But
no favorites.
No favorite. I don't know. I just, it was very typical. I was, maybe I was a little more skeptical than the rest of my siblings, but I don't know if that's even fair to say. I don't know if that's even true.
It's not like you would talk about it, so you wouldn't really know.
Yeah, there was
way.
like, and there's like little things, I would say. There's little things I noticed in the church when I was young that it's like the things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, that's interesting. And I remember the first one, it was a while until I had this, but I feel like I'm hogging the microphone. Maybe we can talk about your upbringing too after this, but.
Gross now.
But so maybe I'll just say this and then you can have a go. But I remember the first thing that happened to me when I went, was EFY. So you're like,
12, 13, how old were you?
Yeah, probably 12, 13. And it's
I'm from Texas, but I did the BYU EFY once.
At BYU?
Yeah, with like Jack Christensen and
John
By the Way.
Oh my gosh, these names.
Right?
I've heard these names in a while. Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah. So I know what you're talking about. That's why, that's the
Yes. So my parents made me go. I didn't want to go. And it's nothing against them at all. It's like, I don't know, like as a parent now, I don't know what I would force my kids to do and not to do.
Right.
It's like, I don't know where that line is anyway.
You'll find out.
Yeah, I'll find out. But so I didn't want to go. I went, and I just really, I had to go for like 3 or 4 years, and I just really, really disliked it. And for those listening that don't know what EFY is, especially for youth, it's basically an inordinate amount of children. And I was to say children,
teens, right?
Teens,
yeah,
descend upon BYU campus, and I guess wreak havoc.
No, it's inspirational speakers,
yes.
right?
It's
like,
that way. Yeah.
It's like inspirational speakers
wreak spiritual havoc.
Yeah.
On the devil,
trying to create very emotional / spiritual experiences, so that the kids' testimonies get really locked down solid.
Yes.
Right.
And it's like
keep kids out of trouble.
I would describe it as sort of like this Christian camp type thing. It's kind of similar to that. It's like, counselors are smiley and young and full of enthusiasm. And
isn't Jesus great?
Yeah. And it just wasn't my personality. There's something that was very conflicting about that, and I remember just like looking over to people, looking to my left, looking to my right, and just saying, I don't think I belong here.
Oh,
you know what I mean? Because
was it the inauthenticity of it? Was
I can't judge
showy,
that.
No,
I don't know. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I don't. For
the
them,
showiness,
maybe like for them, like here, like
not to judge, just to say what you were feeling.
Oh, right, gotcha. I just felt like the soup du jour was always, where is the line between emotionality and spirituality?
Right.
And I look over to people crying, and I just would think like, okay, even at that young age, I was like, all right, so how much of this is emotion and how much of this is spirituality, and how do I tell? How can I confirm that for myself? Because I just wasn't feeling that. I just wasn't that kind of person. And so I remember, I think the second year I had to go, I said, you know what, that's it. I'm figuring this thing out. And so I ditched a couple classes, which, it's not in the sermon pedigree.
No, sermons don't do that.
No, don't do that. So I skipped, but only to do something more righteous, so it's fine.
You went to the temple?
No, I stayed in the dorm room where, you kind of stay with the roommate in this dorm. And so he was gone, and I just knelt on my knees and just prayed. I prayed for at least an hour. Could have been more than that. I don't remember.
Intense.
Just for some confirmation of any kind to know if this church was true. Because if I got that confirmation, man, I was all in. I really was. I was all in on the church. Gung ho, dyed in wool Mormon. My whole life, I was ready for that.
Yeah.
And I just remember, I would pray for, was Joseph Smith a prophet? Was the Book of Mormon true? are prophets real? Is revelation real? I would just go down the line, and I just, wanted an answer to that. And what I felt was absolutely nothing. Nothing. And, I would take anything. I would take a burning in the bosom or some sort of thing that I wouldn't confuse with my own emotion. And I just remember feeling like, man, like I just don't have an answer to this. And so at that point I thought, it was still, maybe it was my fault, and maybe the time wasn't right. It's not like I was like out of the church at all. I was still super in and super devoted to it. It's just, it would have been nice to get that little confirmation. And one other little chink in the armor like this that I can remember. And this, by the way, this is like, there's like a ton of like, I was very much with the pro. I don't want to make it sound like I had like all these doubts, but these were just little things looking back that I think interesting.
Yeah.
I remember I was 14 and in priesthood class, which is what you do after you go to the hour-long session of the congregational part of church. And we were reading in Doctrine and Covenants, which is a part of the Mormon scripture, part of the canon. And I remember reading a line in D&C. I still remember the section 88. I don't remember the verse because I wasn't that good of a Mormon, I guess. But I remember it saying that basically the gist was what is truth is light. Or what is light?
Truth is light.
Truth is light,
yeah.
And
light is truth. Yeah.
And it's a really simple thing, but man, it just hit me like as a resounding truth. Like regardless of anything outside religion, like it just hit me as like to the core. Like that seems true because, obviously, sin doesn't lie in darkness, and lies don't lie in darkness, and the truth can never lie in darkness. It just added up to me, and so then I thought to myself, okay, if that's true, then why are there little things that I know I can't talk about in the church? Why are there whispers in the corners of this religion that I know I can't face, or that if I did, it'd be awkward or weird? Like, we can get into these issues, but like, polygamy or, certain falsehoods that, like there's little whispers of stuff that, it's just like, yeah, you don't go there. And I thought, well, but truth is truth, and it can penetrate anything. So what's the deal with that? And so just looking back,
those are things that were kind of on your shelf.
Yeah.
But you were still all in.
Oh, absolutely.
But just in the back of your mind, those things.
Yes, absolutely.
I had those things too.
Yeah. Anyway, I've been.
No, that's great.
Oh.
That's great. Thank you.
Too much time.
And we're coming back to Wayne's story, but let's jump to Alex. So Alex, you're not living in Utah.
I'm not.
Yeah, tell us about your childhood and upbringing and your family.
Heathen.
California. Oh, California Mormon.
I know.
Yikes.
I just have to say, at BYU, there's always this reputation that like California Mormons are different than Utah Mormons, but there's a lot of intensity in Orange County around Mormonism. Like this is where L. Whitney Clayton comes from. This is
same. We're the same. Yeah.
What do you mean?
I'm just kidding.
Oh, okay. Anyway, like that. What is it? Not Laguna, but like where's the temple? Newport Beach.
Yeah,
like that's some intense Mormonism too. So it's just a different flavor. So anyway, California.
Yeah.
Tell us about your parents and then your kids, your siblings, and all that.
All of my kids. Yeah. So I grew up in Huntington Beach, California. And my mother is a convert. She converted when she met my dad when she was 19. And he grew up in Sugar House in Salt Lake and comes from pioneer stock. I believe I come from a third wife chain somewhere back there. And yeah, so she converted when they met and we grew up Mormon. I'm the oldest of 4 siblings. Yeah, what's kind of unique about
everything?
Just everything, yeah. So I guess what would be unique about my upbringing is my father is kind of an intellectual, and he is an intellectual.
What's his profession?
He's a medical director, but he's just has very high IQ and is constantly researching some subject or another. During my childhood, it was church history a lot. Actually, my grandfather, who I never met, what's his name?
Hugh Nibley.
Hugh Nibley actually was his best friend. So kind of all intertwined that way. And yeah, so my dad from a young age just kind of would plant seeds of, I wouldn't say like to him they were seeds of doubt in my brain, but as a kid, while my brain was developing, I felt like he would say things like, you know, when people go up on the stand and they say they know the church is true, he's like, nah, they don't really know. And, you know, maybe they have faith or they're hoping that it's true, but they don't know. And so
I love your dad. You're really one of the smartest people I've ever met.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it kind of, when I was little, it's like I wanted someone to say, you know, like, I know, I'm fully confident in this, and, you know, because we're living our life that way. But I just kind of knew, all right, that's a little weird. I knew about Joseph Smith's looking in a hat from a really young age. And so when we learned about that at church, I felt like, well, this is a little weird.
Looking in a hat to produce the Book of Mormon.
Correct.
Right.
So all these things were kind of floating in my head. I actually even gave a talk in church saying that people shouldn't say that they know the church is true during testimony meeting. They should say that they have faith, and that faith is way more important than knowledge, because it involves like an act of constantly like searching and knowing, you know, like trying to know, rather than actually just sitting there and saying, you know, the church is true.
So were your parents raising you as devout Mormons, though?
Yeah.
So were you going to church every Sunday? Were you like...
We were going to church every Sunday. I would say there were things, someone in my family, I don't really want to out anyone in my family, but someone in my family battled with an addiction problem. And so, you know, I didn't feel like we were on the like straight and narrow, like a lot of...
Wasn't a perfect...
Right. And so that was kind of hard, because I'm kind of like a rule follower, and I wanted to be more that way in the church. But, you know, I believed that it was true. I hoped that it was true as much as I could. I had a lot of things in the back of my head that, you know, made me uncomfortable. In terms of, I felt like even growing up from a young age, I just felt like women were kind of patronized. I didn't feel like it was, oh, women are just so sweet and soft-spoken, and I didn't really feel that way at all about myself, that I fit into this category of the Mormon woman, but that could have just been my perception. I'm sure that's not the case everywhere. What else? I grew up a ballet dancer.
Well, let me ask, were the things you loved about your Mormon upbringing, like the music or the hymns or like the service or the leaders or the youth or seminary, or were there parts of it you loved?
I wouldn't say that I didn't love it. I went and I attended, and I would say I loved that there was a community. I loved that I felt that there was something special about growing up in this fold. I don't know. I wouldn't say that I just lived and breathed it, maybe like someone like Daniel did, but I felt like it was the right thing to do. I lived by Mormon standards. I felt like that was a good way to live. And I kind of always hoped that that would be what I became one day. Like I would figure it out when I was older. But at the time, things didn't make sense, but that was now, and future me, things will make sense.
Got it.
And that's actually why I'm part of the reason I ended up going to BYU, to kind of like become that Mormon.
You wanted to feel something,
yeah,
but you weren't quite feeling it, but you had hope that you would feel it someday.
Right, exactly. Like my dad would say the same sort of thing, like when people were crying on the stand, it's like, that's emotion. That's not actually the spirit. So I'm like, then what is the spirit if that's not the spirit?
So that's weird. You in your family, you were explicitly talking about the things that Wayne was wondering about, but not able to talk about, but putting on a shelf.
Right.
That's interesting. Totally different family cultures.
Exactly. And
yeah.
I mean, and I was kind of hoping for that, more of that experience, just because I thought that would make it easy on me.
Yeah.
If I had a parent at a young age telling me, this is what to believe. This is what we do.
Right. Because that takes away all the cognitive dissonance. It's just like,
right.
I'm all in because it's true. Versus like, oh, it could be true. It might not be true. Wait, was that emotion or was that the spirit?
Yeah.
That can add, I mean, it's basically like they baked cognitive dissonance into your religious upbringing.
Right. Twisted.
Yeah, which is good and bad because it can make you resilient later.
Right.
Doesn't set you up maybe for quite as hard of a fall because you were...
Exactly. I think, and we'll talk about later, I don't feel like I had as big of a fall just because I always was taught to question
It's interesting.
things. Yeah.
Okay, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Was your dad or your parents into like Sunstone and Dialogue and
Yeah,
all
we
that
actually,
kind of liberal,
what's the name of that?
intellectual Mormon stuff?
Yeah,
the Miller Eccles group, was that?
Is that what it is? We'd go and hear a speaker of, it'd be like an LDS person and a Protestant or someone else, and they kind of have a dialogue.
Oh, okay. Interfaith dialogue.
Yeah,
kind of
maybe.
stuff?
Yeah. So we'd go to speakers like that. My dad would take us to all different churches every once in a while, like once a month. We'd try a different church just so we could just experience something else. And as an adult, I'm grateful for all of this.
Yeah.
But as a kid, it was just like, well, this isn't the truth, Dad. What are we
Right.
doing over here? But
Sounds like you both had really cool parents, just in different ways.
we're big fans of our
Huge
parents.
fans of our parents.
Yeah.
I don't think we could have done better.
Right.
Yeah.
Definitely
Okay.
the case.
So tell us about ballet. Just when did you start dancing?
Yeah, I started dancing at 3.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a huge part of my life all growing up. So I felt like I had a community that way. I danced on Sundays, which, a lot of LDS girls, Latter-day Saint dancers wouldn't do. But I just felt like that was, my family let me do it. And yeah, it was a big part of my life. I danced competitively, just classical ballet, and I ended up, I wanted to go to University of Utah. That's where my dad went, and that was always the plan. But while we were there auditioning, I auditioned for BYU just because my parents wanted me to. And they offered me a scholarship. And the University of Utah did not.
Oh, bummer.
Right. And so rather than going into a bunch of debt, I decided to go to BYU.
Yeah.
Yep.
U of U, what were you thinking? What were you thinking, U of U?
Your loss.
Your loss.
No, I don't know when I should talk about this, but there's an amazing video of Wayne and Alex where Wayne's playing guitar and Alex is dancing, and this is a legit ballerina here, like a professional level ballerina. So you got to check that out because it's beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks so much. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So competitive dance. Now that's an intense sport. We talked before. Margie was a runner, and there's a lot of perfectionism in dance, and there's sometimes eating disorders. Like it's really intense.
Definitely.
Is that how it was?
Yeah, it definitely was. I would say that, I went to BYU and I had a director there who's no longer there, and he kind of like fueled, I would say, an eating disorder with me. Because of my level and everything, I feel like people held me to a really high standard. So I had to look a certain way and be a certain way. And
Margie had a coach that would just say, "You're fat." I mean, these are
Right.
the fittest people you would ever see.
right.
And he would be abusive. And I don't mean to call him out. I'm not trying to hurt anyone's feelings, but these girls were kind of verbally and emotionally abused.
Honestly, I thought music culture was bad. It doesn't hold a candle to I've never seen anything as toxic, as potentially toxic as ballet.
Ballet.
Right. Yeah.
So you had a leader in your life who was similar.
A director at BYU.
Yeah.
And the culture was really bad my freshman year. I think everyone felt it. He actually ended up being fired before my sophomore year it's still unclear. I know that there was a trial of some sort, but some sort of power abuse of women. But I was grateful for that a little bit that he left, and it became a much more positive experience after that. But yeah, so I think that also just as part of my personality to be really intense and just, I don't know.
Driven.
Yeah, driven.
One single-minded, perhaps.
Maybe. Yeah.
So that's interesting, and we'll talk about this in your relationship. But normally, like Margie is super, I'd say, kind of high anxiety, highly organized, highly particular, highly perfectionistic. If you saw my office, you wouldn't call me perfectionistic. I'm more messy,
right,
more spontaneous. It's interesting to think of two similar personalities ending up being together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because there's not as much of the offsetting in that realm.
Yeah, what's funny is I feel like we're both very perfectionist and intense in our art, but in life, we're much more relaxed.
Yeah. Oh, good.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's just
And so we're similar that way as well. So,
but two artists together, that's interesting too, right?
yeah. Luckily, it's different mediums.
Right.
Grateful for that.
Okay, so so at BYU you danced, and anything else you want to say before we, pre-meeting Wayne? I keep wanting to say Daniel. You're Daniel Wayne, right?
Whatever.
Yeah, sorry. I call him Daniel.
You
so
call
it
him
might be
Daniel.
Confusing. Yeah.
No, it's okay. As long you don't care.
I don't care. You can call me
okay.
Wayne. Yeah.
So before meeting Wayne, anything else you want to share about your story, and then we'll hop back to Wayne's story.
I mean, not especially. I would say I was in BYU, but not of BYU. I kind of.
And that's the reputation of Californians. They're like,
really?
Yeah. Well, so what do you mean by that?
Yeah, I mean, I felt like I didn't quite fit in with the dating culture or at the time, it's like girls would get up like 2 hours before church and just want to look great for the guys. And I purposely would wake up like 5 minutes before and not wear makeup just to be like, what are we doing? I don't need to impress you. And I felt like it was very showy, maybe. And that was just my interpretation. I was just kind of like a beach town girl. I wrote for the Daily Universe.
Oh.
If you know that at BYU.
Yeah,
I was a journalism major, and I really did love my experience there. And yeah, I guess the only thing that would be interesting is that I just wasn't interested in dating guys at BYU in general.
Okay.
But yeah.
What about like, the prophet speaking, or these religion classes? Like for me, were you into and you talked about how maybe your testimony wasn't where you wanted it to be, but maybe BYU would be the answer. How was your spiritual journey at BYU? Did you get what you wanted? Did you find what you were looking for?
I think more. I grew. My testimony grew. I enjoyed hearing the prophet speak. I felt like I was a part of something bigger, something important. I was like right there in the center of Mormonism, and that was exciting since I'd never really been in that position. However, I still just didn't buy it all. I thought it was cool, and I probably had that same mindset of like, one day it'll all fully make sense. Like every once in a while there'd be something said, and I would just put it, I guess, on my shelf and think, I'll figure that out later though,
Yeah. Was there in any of your Mormon upbringing any like guilt and shame sort of stuff that really vexed you? Did you ever have to confront any of that stuff?
Not from my parents. My parents were super open-minded about stuff like that. I kind of put the pressure on myself just knowing from the church's standard, like I had a boyfriend at 15 and I felt pretty awful about that, even though my parents were like, we never told you couldn't date at 15. But to me, that was a really big deal because it was constantly said that you don't date until 16. So I feel like any pressure was kind of, I would hear maybe in young women's or church, and I would put it on myself, but I didn't get that directly from my parents, which I think helped me mentally.
Any bad run-ins with leaders, adolescence or adulthood, or was it
No,
pretty smooth sailing?
I mean, I was pretty goody two-shoes, so not really that way. I mean, I feel like, and we'll talk about it later maybe, but, before getting married, there were bishops that said things that were probably a little inappropriate, but again, I just kind of let it roll off because I feel like I felt pretty confident. Just, I believe things that make sense and logic, but when things are said to me that aren't logical, or if my shorts were too short or something like that, I just didn't find that to be that offensive to me, because to me, I felt right. I felt right with my Savior or whatever, and I didn't think of someone else being able to tell me to feel wrong about something, I guess.
That's great.
Yeah.
Good. All right, Alex, thanks for the background. We'll come back to you. Don't get too comfortable.
Okay. I'm not comfortable. Don't worry about that.
You thrive,
Oh.
you thrive.
Yeah, again, this was sprung on me this morning. I was not planning on doing this interview until this morning.
You're doing great.
I call Providence on that because I woke up thinking you should do it with me. And John texted me at 8 a.m, and I woke up to a text that said, is Alex going to be joining us? So, not to be woo-woo.
And I'm just down there feeding our daughter oatmeal, thinking nothing's different. So I don't know about that.
I saw that video. I was doing some prep work, and I saw that video, and I'm like, oh man, we got to get Alex in here.
Got to get that weirdo in.
She makes me, she evens me out. So
I'm more here as like an emotional support pup. not in like a subservient way, but
no.
you know, we're good together. So
Yeah, you are good together. All right, Wayne. So back to your story. So we left off. You were being an adolescent and not so sure about the EFY thing, but putting it on your shelf and trying to make it work.
Yeah, and you know, I stayed with it, and you know, junior high happened. It was terrible, but you know, I think that's a universal truth as well, is that junior high is terrible.
Yeah.
High school was better.
Okay.
And had a good time. You know.
Talk about your development as a musician.
Oh yeah. I started playing piano when I was 8, and I started playing cello when I was 10. I still play both of those.
Was Yo-Yo Ma like a huge?
Yeah. Pablo Casals, Yo-Yo Ma. So I
cello before guitar then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So I really enjoyed that, but I remember going into a music store when I was 12, and my dad played guitar, so I was always aware that was an instrument.
Was he like a John Denver? Like what?
Yeah, maybe John Denver.
James Taylor.
James Taylor, more, you know, singer-songwriter, you know, kind of 70s, you know, 60s, 70s stuff.
Love it.
That he was into.
That's my stuff.
Absolutely.
Eagles.
Yeah, he's a really great musician. And so I always saw him play guitar, but I never thought about, you know, it was an acoustic guitar, and I was like, oh, that's cool. And I remember when I was 12, I walked into a music shop just because we needed something called the Rhythm Section in American Fork. We finally got a music store. We were on the map. And I walked in, and there was just row after row of electric guitars. And I just remember thinking, what the hell are those? Give me one.
Really?
Yes. And I was obsessed with it. I asked one for Christmas.
What was your first guitar?
It was an Ibanez RX-60. Nice. Black with Perloid pickguard. Humbucker, a single coil for those who are interested. And
you're reminding me of Neil Peart.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
Or Geddy Lee with the, you know.
Or Spinal Tap.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was absolutely hooked from the moment I saw it. I was like, that's my life now.
Really?
Absolutely. I was obsessed with it. As soon as I got the guitar for Christmas, best Christmas ever. My parents are awesome for getting me one. It changed my life.
Little amp
to go with it. You betcha. Push the button in, it has a little distortion. And so
what did you start? Did you like? Was it? How did you start? Like, what songs did you start learning? What was your goal? Like, were you trying to get your teacher to teach you rock music? Were you just like learning the classics? Like,
I just became obsessed with absolutely everything about music. I became single-minded. Like, honestly, like even religion, everything takes a backseat. As soon as music was in my life, that I practiced for 8 hours a day sometimes.
8 hours a day?
Absolutely.
By choice? By
choice. I loved it. I would eat cereal and play the guitar, not taking breaks.
That actually happened
And,
all the time. When I first met him, he'd always have a guitar in his hand, no matter what he was doing.
But was it like listen to stuff and then play and listen and play?
Yeah, I would like listen to a lot of like my older brother was really into grunge, and so Pearl Jam, Nirvana was like, that's some of the first stuff I learned. He loved grunge music, and so I love grunge music.
Just learning chords.
And then got into lessons and learned how to do solos, and just like became more and more rabid the more I learned, and just
local guitar teachers?
Yeah, just local guitar teachers, and you know, slowly moved up to better and better teachers and more renowned teachers and stuff like that. And I remember when I was 16, actually, it's interesting.
Were you in a band before 16? Like, did you?
Just like family stuff. And,
okay.
You know, like high school bands and stuff for sure.
Okay.
But I remember when I was 16, we were at a Mormon wedding, and it was, you know, sometimes they're fun, sometimes they're a drag, because you go to one a week, to be honest. And me and my dad, we go to one once a week.
Oh, okay.
It's a weekly occurrence in Utah.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, when your dad's a bishop, you know.
Yeah. Was your dad bishop?
No, he's a stake president now, actually.
Was he then, though?
No.
Okay.
No. But we were sitting at the table, kind of bored, didn't really know the people, and we were eating some cake, and my dad, you know, was like, hey, so what are you going to do with your life? I was like 15 or 16. It's like time to think about these things potentially. I was like, oh, I don't know, maybe, you know, get an MBA or go to law school. And my dad just looked at me. I'll never forget. He said, what are you talking about? There's something in the stars for you with music. And that like really stuck with me. And I don't know if he even knew at the time how much that impacted me, but I thought to myself, he's completely right. Like, I have to dedicate my life to this. And so,
wow. So many parents are going to be like, have your stable profession.
Exactly.
And then music if it happens, but don't rely on it.
Yeah. So rather than that, it was the exact opposite. It was the exact opposite.
That is so powerful.
Instead of a parents that discouraged, and my mom was the same way, you know, she was just as gung-ho for me doing this. It's like, instead of being discouraged from it, you're actively like pushed. I was actively pushed into doing this. And so,
but you also loved it. So
I also loved it.
They saw that.
They saw that and said, yes, do it.
Cool parents, man.
Freaking cool parents.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everyone who meets them knows.
Yeah. I really couldn't ask for anything better as parents. And, so I, played all through high school, played high school bands, got more serious, got into like jazz and like more like, sort of like highbrow, sort of nerdy part of music, and took AP music classes and just like really wanted to absorb all of it. And when high school finally was over, I decided to go to Berklee. I went to UVU for a while first, but then decided to go to Berklee in Boston, and my parents were really encouraging with that too.
A lot of people. So just as a funny little coincidence, there was an amazing musician growing up in Katy, Texas. Renee Zellweger and I were in the same high school class.
That's right.
But Michelle Burke was an amazing musician who went to Berklee. And I'm like, Berklee, that's in California. And it's like, no. Berklee School of Music in Boston. It's like Juilliard, but it's in Boston, basically.
Right.
Is that fair to say?
Yeah, it's more contemporary. Like Juilliard is probably more focused on jazz and classical, whereas Berklee has more of a contemporary.
And it's Berklee with the
slant.
EE, right? Not an EY or...
EE, yeah.
Right,
mostly like jazz and pop. and.
But it's top-notch, training.
Great teachers. But yeah, so that's like the whole music, that's like my music path. But as far as like where I was spiritually at that time, so obviously,
Wait. Before we leave that.
Okay.
Were there any... Was it always in your mind to be a lead guitarist? Like in those teen years?
A musician. All I cared about was doing music.
Okay, so it wasn't like I want to be Eddie Van Halen or I want to be...
I mean,
Did you have a favorite, like, were there particular musicians that you were like really idolizing? Jimi Hendrix?
Yeah, Jimi Hendrix, Eric Clapton. I loved Lindsey Buckingham. Tom Scholz from Boston. George Harrison, obviously from the Beatles.
And as a teen, those are your influences.
Yeah, and that's like goal number one is being a band and like, travel the world and all that. Like I would just watch late night TV and like wait for the band to come on and I remember just thinking, if I could just do that, if I could just like that, what an absolute dream that would be. Like it would be like winning the lottery 1,000 times in a row.
Wow.
Like I just remember wanting it so bad. Mm-hmm. I know that the odds are like so stacked. And so I just, but I couldn't help but dream and want it. And so, yeah, so I just followed that. Any
numbers that you learned as a teen that were like particularly momentous? Like, I'm going to learn this lick or this song, or were there any like
Smoke on the Water?
Yeah.
Nah, that's a joke.
Yeah.
Because that's the first one everyone learns, right? Nah, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I don't know. I think sort of like when I was like really serious about it, and when everyone realized I was serious about it, is when I learned there's a song called "Alive" by Pearl Jam, and incredible guitar, like one of my favorite guitar solos. So I learned it note for note when I was like 15 or 16, and that's when it's like, okay, I think he's serious about this.
And you were able to figure it out.
Uh-huh.
And
learning like "Eruption" by Van Halen and like all the
Eruption, yes,
all the necessary stuff you have to. We call that guitar wanking. The faster you can play, the better. So Joe Satriani, Steve Vai, like just like learning how to play really fast and technically proficiently. And
so you learned Eruption at what age?
Probably 16.
Okay, for those of you young folks, go check out Eddie Van Halen's Eruption.
I don't play as good as him because no one does.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
I learned it note for note. Yeah,
that's
in my own way.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you think about, and I want to get to your spiritual stuff. When you think about going to Berklee in your mind, were there any famous musicians that had gone to Berklee? What in your mind made you think Berklee, given your ambitions? How was it going to get you to where you wanted to go?
Yeah, I think you can get like a really decent music education from like BYU or places that were closer to me, but nothing that had the contemporary edge to it. Like I wanted to do either contemporary like writing and production or performance, and so there was nothing really in Utah that was quite right for that. And so Berklee was kind of the mecca where pretty much everyone goes. If like you're the best whatever in your town, then maybe you think about going here where you'll become a very tiny fish in a very huge pond and suddenly realize you're not so great.
Have famous people gone to Berklee?
Like Pat Metheny, like John Mayer went there, I think.
John Mayer?
Yeah.
He's a great guitarist, right?
He's a great guitar player.
Who's the person you said before?
John Scofield. These are like jazz people.
Okay, jazz guitarists.
Jazz guitar players. who else? Like, there's I mean, you can just go online and see. There's like
Okay.
a ton of
Okay.
famous people have gone there. But so that was a good selling point for me. But yeah, just more than anything, I wanted to go where people were like-minded.